Coming up on Oakdale Update, we'll visit with Washington County Attorney Pete ORPUT. We'll introduce you to a new business in the city, and we'll take a look at some upcoming events. Stay tuned. Oakdale Update is straight ahead. Hello and welcome to Oakdale Update. I'm your host, Frank Orsello. This is the City of Oakdale's news and information program about your community. Pete ORPUT was elected as the Washington County Attorney in 2011 and re-elected in 2015. He's here in the studio with me today. Pete, thanks for taking time out of your very busy schedule, I know, to join us on Oakdale Update.
It's a great opportunity. Thank you, Frank.
Okay. All right, let's start out. Just tell me a little bit about yourself. Give me a little bit of your background.
Well, I've been a prosecutor for about 30 years. I've held a number of positions. At one time, I was the former Deputy Attorney General in charge of the Public Protection section of their office. I also had a wonderful career in Hennepin County Attorney's Office. And so I've been doing this for a very long time.
Okay. And how do you like being out in Washington County?
I love it here.
Is it?
I've lived here. I've worked here for years. I just love being here.
Okay. Compare it to Hennepin County. I mean, the crime situation, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I enjoyed Hennepin. The pace was pretty amazing, and the number of homicides and violent crimes, which gave me a lot of skill to bring to Washington County.
Absolutely. All right, speaking of Hennepin County, as we all know in the news, and I didn't plan to bring this up, but it's in the news, so we have to talk about it. Because of Mike Freeman's bypassing the grand jury on the Jamar Clark case. Could you comment on that just a little bit?
I can. This is, Frank, officer-involved shootings where they end up killing a suspect. They get a lot of attention. I've had several cases out here in Washington County, and we've been talking, us county attorneys, Metro County attorneys, for months about how we handle those cases. The goal is all of us want to be transparent with the public. We want the public to hear and see all the evidence and facts, but sometimes a grand jury is necessary. Now, Mike Freeman took the position he's never going to take cases to the grand jury.
Is this just strictly police shootings, though, or regular cases?
Police shootings.
Okay.
Other people have said they take everything to a grand jury, and I've always taken the position that I take the right case to the grand jury based on a number of factors. If, on the one hand, it's a simple case, we did have one where a mentally ill man attacked the police with a sword, and they had to shoot him to stop him. And that was unfortunate, but it was all caught on video. There's no reason to bring it to a grand jury. Then on the other hand, there's cases where it is important to determine what happened. In those cases, I think the citizens need to be involved in, 23 of them to hear the evidence and make their own decisions. But, you know, right now, it's a topic that's getting a lot of discussion.
Is this nationally or just pretty much just local at this point?
Nationally.
Nationally,
Frank,
it is,
yes.
huh?
We've been talking, the National District Attorneys Association's been having meetings on this for a long time. Again, the goal is the public needs to know how the county attorney arrives at decisions, because it is a public office and I represent the public. So that's all of our number one concern. How we get there, we are working on.
Okay. All right, that was an aside, so but let's get down to what we originally were going to talk about. All right, sex trafficking is getting to be such a huge item. So could you let's talk about sex trafficking, especially in young people. Okay, give me a definition, what your definition of sex trafficking is.
Well, sex trafficking, the word sex shouldn't even be in there. What it is this exploitation of human beings. That's what it is. We call it juvenile sex trafficking. What it really entails is someone is selling their body to another person for money. And when it comes to juvenile sex trafficking, we have young, mostly women, but I imagine there's boys too, selling their body, and they're under 18 years old.
Okay, so how do these kids get involved in this sort of thing?
Well, if I could make some generalizations, Frank,
Sure.
It's typically we see girls who come from a very unstable home. They either run away or they're completely disaffected at home. And along comes Prince Charming. someone who comes off very smoothly, very caring, and they seduce these girls. And they make it seem like they're there to protect and help those girls. And once they get them on the hook, it slowly turns into a hell for those kids, where they are forced to get on party buses and have sex with a number of strangers. They're brought to hotels and motels to have sex, and it's incredibly exploitive.
Okay. So what is the situation in Washington County?
Well, in response to it, first of all, I think we were slow in identifying that it was a problem out here. Many of us thought, well, that's an urban problem in Minneapolis and St. Paul, prostitution. But we learned the hard way, actually, that we have it out here too. So we took a very aggressive position on this about in December to address it. Since December, we've uncovered 4 juvenile victims who were being trafficked by pimps. And we've gotten them the help they need, and then we've gone after the pimps, and we've gone after the customers, the so-called Johns.
You know, in the movie Taken, I think we've all seen that movie. The girls are chained and drugged, and then they're going to be sold to Albania or someplace. You know, how realistic is that?
There is some human trafficking, that's what we call it. Usually it's labor trafficking, where an immigrant will come to the country and they'll be exploited by the person who brought them. But what we're seeing mostly is the phenomenon where one doesn't need to chain somebody to a bed to get them to do what they want. They use psychological games on these kids who are very vulnerable to begin with. And so they get exploited and manipulated.
And you brought up the pimps. You know, they've got obviously a pretty important role in this.
Big role.
And what is the money factor as far as the pimps go?
Well, it starts with, if I can again make a generalization, Frank, the pimp will find a young girl maybe at the bus station or something, and they swoop in and say, you know, you're gorgeous, you look beautiful, can I take you to lunch? And they slowly charm them, slowly build a dependency. And then after just a very short period of time, that dependency's augured in, and then if the girl really loves this guy, they'll get a tattoo. We now have them branding, where they take a hot iron and brand it into the girls.
Goodness.
And then it's all about the money. They turn over every nickel they make to the pimp, and he doles it out with a little eyedropper.
Oh my goodness.
Keeping the control very close.
Oh. Okay, so what does social media, what role does social media play on this?
Well, that's a great question, Frank, because a lot of us think of prostitution as the young lady standing on a street corner in Minneapolis. Almost all of it now, that still occurs, but nothing like today with social media. Sources like Craigslist, Backpage, people can advertise their bodies for sale, and then customers can respond to that. And that's where we see a great deal of trafficking going on.
Wow. So the Johns now, obviously, they have a big role in this. What do you do with the Johns when you catch them?
Well,
other than there's a nice list of them in the paper, but that, I mean, it would sure stop me if I were in that position. But okay, what else? What else do you do to these guys?
Well, you look at it from a supply and demand side. We have to address both. And on the demand side, we've held a number of stings. In fact, we have some more coming, where our officers will place ads, ostensibly just like the ones that are in Backpage now. In other words, a 15-year-old girl wanting to have sex. And the people who respond will come to a motel and we'll arrest them, because it is a felony to arrange to have sex with an underage child. And we've been very successful in those. And what I try to tell the community is those who want to buy their sex off the internet from another human being, I've upped the ante. The price is going to be high because the risk is a lot higher. Because if you do it in my county, you very well may be arrested.
And okay, so what happens to these? All right, let me ask you this: what's the profile on the Johns? I mean, are you reading the paper? They're married, they have kids, or they're weird people? I guess I don't know. What's the profile generally?
Generally, it runs a gamut, Frank. It runs school teachers, law enforcement officers, ministers, teachers. It's just a real slice. Most of them are married. They run from their 20s to their 60s. And it's so heartbreaking to see the people we arrest because they're our neighbors. And it's like, what are they doing? So I'm trying to raise the awareness that anybody that wants to order a human being off the internet is at great risk of getting charged with a felony.
That's great. And do they, okay, so what kind of sentence could they get? You read about them in the paper, and then that seems like they get 20 days or, if anything, fined and all that. So what
penalty,
are you going to do?
The penalty never, in my view, equals the egregiousness of the act. They're low-level felonies. However, depending on what you do, you may be forced to register as a sex offender. But it's a low-level felony. We just had a couple of sentences where the judge was pretty light on it. In other words, a little jail, but we force those so-called Johns, I hate to use that word because I have a lot of friends named John, but the customers, we have them go to a lengthy school that's run in St. Paul to get them aware of what they did and why it's so egregious.
So in other words, you try and teach them, tell them that they're enablers more than victims, I guess, right?
They hear from girls that have gotten out of the system that tell them how bad it really is, just to raise their consciousness, like domestic abuse counseling that we send those folks through. They have to learn other ways of dealing with things.
So are these guys just looking for one night of fun, that kind of thing? Or?
Yes, they are. And in fact, Frank, it's gotten so bad that you can order a human being as easily as you can order a pizza.
Really?
And that's heartbreaking. But we're doing something about it. We're protecting the kids in our community. Wow. And like I say, I've got 4 young girls that we've gotten out. And by the way, if a girl or even a boy is involved in the trafficking, they're the ones selling their bodies, we consider them victims under the law, the safe harbor law that John Choi from Ramsey County and I helped push.
Yes.
So they're considered victims. And because they're victims, we have an obligation to get social services involved right at the beginning. And we formed a team of highly trained investigators, a prosecutor, and social workers that when we identify a young kid, we all come in and try to holistically respond. In other words, if the girl needs a safe home, we get them in foster care. They need therapy. They need all kinds of help. And that's what we do. We immediately address that, and then we go after the pimps and the customers.
That was going to be my next question. But so then these girls, okay, what kind of success ratio have you been having with this, this new approach?
Well, like I say, we've I think the right word is rescued 4 girls out of the abyss of being trafficked. We've got about 25 to 30 so-called customers or Johns being prosecuted, and we've got 6 pimps that we've either prosecuted or are in the final investigative stages of it. Mm-hmm. They're the ones I really want.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just putting their name in the John's names in the paper isn't enough, right? I mean,
it would be enough to shame you or me. But,
I know, that's what I'm thinking.
No, there has to be a little more punishment to it, and we've tried to find a measured response. We want it to stop. That's what we want. Mm-hmm. We don't want anybody thinking they can look in the back page or Craigslist and order a human being with impunity. That's going to stop.
That's wonderful. And John Choi over in Ramsey County, you and him work pretty tight on this deal, right?
We do. We both realize, Frank, that if you really want to make a difference, you have to team up. And that's part of what we did in our sex trafficking initiative here. But we're working closely with Ramsey County and Minneapolis and Hennepin County.
Good. That's very good. All right, so we're going to go to a new topic here.
Yes, sir.
I just got a brochure from Washington County. I live in Washington County, obviously, and it said in there that you have hired a major crimes prosecutor to fight organized crime. Now, we don't, as I talked to you before, we aren't talking about mafia-type organized crime, but tell me, give me a definition of what is this all about, hiring this major crimes prosecutor? What does that mean?
Well, it started a while back, Frank. As we were looking at the crimes being committed, we realized that there are certain crimes being committed by organized groups of criminals, not necessarily mafia, but sophisticated organized groups. And it started with realizing that some of the shopping malls in our county have been deluged with groups of criminals that come in highly organized, and they'll have boxes of credit cards under the names of people who've had their identity stolen, and they will fleece these shopping malls for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then they take off. They're highly organized. What happens is the police need to do deep investigation to get to the root of it. And the fact is, we all find ourselves too busy with the day-to-day to drill into it. Well, I met with the Woodbury and Cottage Grove chiefs and our sheriff and said, if I dedicate an attorney out of the day-to-day lineup just to work these cases and work them hard, would you do the same? And they all agreed that they'd have detectives just working the long-term investigations so we can get those crooks too. And it's been working well.
Okay, in other words, okay, so Chief Sullivan over here in Oakdale, he gets a report of a stolen credit card being used at the local Target. So there's more to it than that, isn't there?
Yeah.
And it's not just one person and that he would go after. Your man in your office would be involved in this too, and probably go all the way down to the chain of command there and find that this is a real big deal. There's more cards out in the area than just that one, right?
As a matter of fact, Frank, thanks for reminding me, Chief Sullivan and Oakdale Police were very enthusiastic in working with us. So that's right. Sometimes you get somebody that stole a purse and took someone's credit card and they're trying to use it. But we've uncovered cases where criminals will get delivered to them by FedEx boxes of credit cards, all made up using your or my credit card account number, and then they'll go into these shops and typically buy gift cards or anything they can convert into cash into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so the commitment is, if we can all take someone from our busy schedules and just work on those cases, we can build them and put them together and hold them to account. And we're in the early stages, but it's having some really good payoff.
That's wonderful. This person that you hired, is he, in your network, or where did he come from?
Well, I asked the county board, I said, here's the model, here's the idea, to take somebody out of the day-to-day going to court every day. So I told the board I have the most passionate senior prosecutor in my office. If they'd allow me to move him into the organized criminal activity, I could hire a brand new lawyer to do the day-to-day, and we can train that lawyer. So that's what we did. I took my senior, most passionate prosecutor, pulled him out, and then brought a young lady in to cover his day-to-day so that he just works on these. And frankly, we've been caught up in our juvenile sex trafficking so much we haven't really gotten to any of the other crimes because we've been so busy with it.
Okay, so in this article it said the vision, and I quote, vision for the investigation. You hire this person, he has more of a vision for the investigation. Does this mean that he goes, like there's a crime scene, he'll go right to the crime scene along with the police and get right on top of it?
Yeah.
And what else does he do?
Well, it starts with that, Frank. Somebody has to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've always had a duty on-call attorney.
An attorney?
Yeah, and to take calls, including me. And but when we get a homicide or a very sophisticated case or something, it's always a good idea for a prosecutor to come out to help with drafting search warrants, administrative subpoenas, help in directing where we go with the investigation. The cops love it, we love it, because together we can build a very strong case to hold people to account.
And it's also to keep the coppers from contaminated evidence and that kind of thing. Did your people go along with the chain of custody and that sort of thing?
Well, what we tell the cops is we're there to augment the investigation, to help. I've found it very successful in my career to be at the scene to assist. I don't tell a cop how to do his investigation, but I tell them how important this and that evidence will be and how much we need it, and to make sure it's done well so that we all feel like we've been a success in our prosecutions.
Okay, well, Pete, we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to go to a new topic. There was so much more that we could go over here, but the crime prevention for safety, for senior citizens. You read about this in the paper about these poor old people that get scammed, something fierce. So I'm going to mention a couple of them, and you tell me a little bit about them, okay? So we have telemarketing fraud, which I've even been tempted to, trying to dupe me, but I'm
me
a lot
too,
smart.
and my dad.
I'm smarter. Okay, but telemarketing fraud, telemarketing, that's the one.
I can sum it up like this, Frank. Our senior citizens are some of our most vulnerable population for a lot of reasons. And it seems like they're vulnerable to fraudsters calling them on the phone and bamboozling them. And they've got a number of sophisticated ways to bamboozle these seniors. but there's been some poignant cases where our senior citizens fall for these scams and their life savings are wiped out.
Yeah.
And the difficult thing for me is the crooks often don't even live here. I can't get my hands on their neck because they're either in the Caribbean or in Europe somewhere. So we're out trying to teach seniors not to get ripped off. And if anybody would like a crime prevention class, they can call my office.
Sure.
I've done it to groups of 10 in a living room to packed churches. But telemarketing fraud is the number one thing for seniors that get fleeced. And it's done over the phone, and it's really, really painful for them.
Sure. I read about it in the paper, and then I think, how could you possibly get scammed like that? I mean, geez. But the one that gets me is the grandma-grandpa scam. I mean, you know, they call and say that, Grandma, I'm in jail in Mexico, send me some money, and that sort of thing. What's the background on that? I mean, that's...
Well, that's been a popular one, along with the IRS, and I have to mention that. I've gotten those calls.
I have too.
But what they'll say is oftentimes somebody will call, and the goal is to scare you, because if they scare you, you don't think rationally. And so you might get a call from somebody saying, your grandson's in the Broward County emergency room in Fort Lauderdale, and we need $3,000 to start treatment, or he's in jail and needs to be bonded out. And what do? You go, my grandson? Oh my gosh. And so we quit thinking and we send a money order. And it happens all the time. Or the you've won a prize scams, those are really tough.
Yeah, that is so spooky. I've had some call me about an unpaid bill, my NSP, and they're going to come and shut the power off at my, well, they did it at my business. They're going to shut the power off. That is, I mean, but then NSP came, or Excel came out and said, you know, they started sending notices out about this, warning people.
Sure.
And I mean, that's just another one, isn't it?
Well, what did you do? You got scared.
You're
going to shut my power. Or the IRS. We've audited your taxes and you came up $3,000 short. If you don't pay us right now, we're going to arrest you. Well, could you imagine someone like my dad going, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. And this scam with Excel, I said, no, I sent a check in. I sent a check and he says, oh, that check, we don't know if that check is any good. I want your credit card number right now. And I know, well, then it's finally dawned on me, but I'm slow.
Well, one thing I would say, Frank, to those viewing, never, ever give out your social security number or your credit card number over the phone. I don't care who it is on the other end. By the way, we don't know who it is on the other end, even when, because crooks can spoof caller ID.
Sure.
So just stick to that rule of thumb and never give that out over the phone.
Absolutely. Well, Pete, we are so out of time, it's ridiculous, but I want to thank you for joining us. You and I could sit here for 2 or 3 hours easy.
We could.
So we're gonna have you back, and we'll do it all over again, okay?
Thank you. Can I just give my condolences to Ted Birth family?
Oh, yes.
We miss Ted very much. Thank you.
Very active down in the Washington County, wasn't he? Okay.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you very much. It's now time for our Business Spotlight segment. Each month we profile a different business in our community. This month we're focusing on Quantum Merchant Services.
An industry leader in credit card processing is located right in Oakdale. Owner Rob Olson tells us about Quantum Merchant Services.
Well, we help small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses accept electronic payments, credit cards, debit cards, gift cards, electronic checks, that type of thing. We also build websites and mobile apps. Mobile apps right now is the hot new product coming out and service, so we're excited about that as well.
Olson loves having his business in Oakdale.
We're right on the corner of 94 and 694, so as you're driving north on 694 or 494 to 694, we've got our name right out there on the freeway. So people ask me all the time, "Oh, is that you? Is that your company?" So I love Oakdale. I love the people here. Very, very nice. Getting to know a lot of the people at the chamber and doing business with them as well has been fantastic.
Olson sees a bright future in store for Quantum Merchant Services.
Well, obviously growth. It's not a business you can jump into and grow quickly without trouble. So we're taking it slow and steady, and we want to grow as big as we can, but still maintain the quality of service that our customers have enjoyed up to now.
Quantum Merchant Services is located at 7300 Hudson Boulevard North in Oakdale. For more information, visit quantumgo.com.
Later in the show, we'll feature another business, the Fractional Toy Store. It's time for a short break, but first I wanted to mention the passing of two men who served the Oakdale area for a number of years. Ted Berth passed away in early March. He was a frequent guest on this show. If there was an area to serve in Oakdale, Ted likely had done it. Over the years, he was the mayor of Oakdale, on the city council, and also known as Mr. Summerfest for his work with Summerfest. Most recently, he was a Washington County Commissioner. In early March, we also lost Bernie Brummer, who served in Minnesota union leadership for decades and was the former president of the AFL-CIO. He also made appearances over the years on this show too. On a personal level, these two are my close personal friends. Our condolences to the families of both Ted and Bernie. We'll be right back with more of Oakdale Update in just a minute.
We talked this month about a new business in our community, Glorious Hugs, which uses some really innovative strategies to promote a business to our senior community. All of this on Your Business Matters.
Welcome back to Oakdale Update. Just before the break, I promised a second business spotlight for this month's show. Here's the Fractional Toy Store.
All the fun for only a fraction of the cost. That's the motto of Fractional Toys in Oakdale.
Fractional Toys is about recreational toys, obviously. I started to help people get outdoors for a fraction of the cost. That's where the name came from. I came from a background of selling boats and just realized that when people purchase something, they always kind of wanted something else too.
Fractional Toys gives year-round access to recreational vehicles such as boats, snowmobiles, and RVs. Customers can either rent them just once or become members and have access to even more benefits.
There's been boat clubs forever. There's been car clubs, this and that, and the one-off rentals is really a great way for us to earn someone's trust. You know, so they'll come in, they'll see our campers, they'll see how nice they are. They'll see some of the other stuff and they'll ask, hey, what's all this or whatnot? And then it's a good segue into the membership.
Fractional Toys is located at 7500 Hudson Boulevard North in Oakdale. For more information, visit their website at fractionaltoys.com.
That's all we have time for this month on Oakdale Update. For everyone at the City of Oakdale, thanks for watching.